But as we say, President Biden is heading to Europe. It's his overseas trip, which will include a stop in Rome for the G20 Summit, where he'll talk about his economic objectives on a global scale. Meanwhile, here at home, Democrats say they're nearing the finish line in negotiations over Mr. Biden's domestic agenda. And I chuckle because I feel like I read that line every day. They're trying to hammer out details of a massive spending package focused on climate change and social issues. Ed O'Keefe is joining us now from the White House to talk more about these negotiations. So, Ed, you did hear me chuckle a little bit because I have been joking all this week with you and Anne-Marie that it does feel a little bit like Groundhog Day. But this is new. The White House confirmed.
Took the line out of my mouth. Glad you did.
I like when I do that. But the president did meet with Senator Kyrsten Sinema yesterday. She has been a holdout on the social spending bill. We also know that the president met with a number of House members as well. I find it intriguing, Ed, that oftentimes pundits tend to lump Senator Manchin and Senator Sinema together, but they're very, very different, and they have very, very different constituents. I mean, Joe Manchin is in a state where, you know, he should not be a Democrat in that state, but there he is holding the line for that party. Meanwhile, Kyrsten Sinema has had a long history of being a very liberal a state senator before she became a United States senator, and that's what's intriguing about Sinema. So how did the meeting go?
Well, first of all, I'm glad we all got the blue memo this morning.
We really did.
And what was that line where he always like threw the guy into the street, the Heidi Ho neighbor? Was that what Bill Murray would do when the guy came around him?
Oh yeah. Phil Ryerson. Phil Ryerson.
Good movie, and an apt comparison to what we've been living through now for about 9 months as we wait for Democrats to finally put this thing together and get it passed. How did the meeting go? Well, the one thing we know we got out of it is Kyrsten Sinema's support for this new corporate minimum tax, essentially now would codify into law a policy that the nation's wealthiest corporations end up having to pay at least something in taxes. And it would pay about a 9-figure sum towards the ultimate cost of this bill, however many trillions of dollars it may end up costing, but it won't cover the whole thing. So while she's on board, while it's likely that Manchin will be on board and therefore all other Democrats will be on board, the question at this point is how do you pay for everything else? And there's this proposed billionaires tax now that would hit about 700 of the nation's wealthiest people in one way or another. I'm not going to get into the granular details even here because it's a bit pedantic and frankly only applies to about 700 people. But even if that were to be an option, there are Democrats across the spectrum who take issue with it. And so that's sort of one of the things that has to be resolved today. And Manchin is a factor in those talks. He said yesterday he was waiting for the fine print. Well, the fine print is out, so it's likely at some point through the day today he'll read through it and maybe by the end of the day send up a smoke signal about whether he's for or against it. If he's for it, we're that much closer to a deal. If he's against it, they may be sending Democrats back to the drawing board to say, where do we come up with the money to pay for this thing? And that's what continues to prolong what they insist will be the inevitable passage of this thing. But the longer they go, the more the support for this is going to go down, the more it's going to be a drag on the party, and the more they can look around and realize all the other things that aren't getting done while this consumes their time.
So in the meantime, not only is President Biden, concerned about his agenda and concerned about what he's going to be doing overseas, he's also concerned about what's happening in Virginia. President Biden is back in Washington today, but he was campaigning for Democrat Terry McAuliffe in Virginia yesterday, and it comes ahead of next week's election, of course. In his remarks, Mr. Biden took some shots at the Republican Party and at McAuliffe's Republican opponent, Glenn Youngkin. I'm going to play some of that sound.
Terry's opponent has made all of his private pledges of loyalty to Donald Trump. But what's really interesting to me, he won't stand next to Donald Trump now that the campaign's on. You've made this progress because you've had the courage and the wisdom to reject the very extremism that has taken over the Republican Party all across America.
So you were at that rally. What was the president's message and what was the strategy?
The strategy was to do what you saw just there, try to goad his predecessor into the fray with just 6 days to go now, hoping that if he can provoke Donald Trump, it'll give Democrats a little more fodder in the closing hours of this contest, which remains incredibly close. Another survey out this morning shows how enthusiasm among Republicans or voters inclined to support Youngkin is surging, while that among Democrats sort of seems to be stalling. And so holding this event yesterday in Arlington, Virginia, about a 12-minute drive in that direction from where we stand right now, and in a presidential motorcade, maybe like a 6-minute drive. But a political world away in that it has a critical test of Democratic staying power, really, next week, even though it's rooted in local issues of concern like education, the economy, COVID, whether or not abortion policy might get changed in the coming years in the Commonwealth. A lot of national themes, of course, are bleeding into this race, as they will bleed into all local and statewide politics next year, because increasingly all politics is national. Whether that's a good or a bad thing is up for you to decide. And so the president going after the first lady went, and will go and went again this past week. The vice president's going down to campaign with McAuliffe and the singer Pharrell later this week. That's a classic Democratic Party play. Bring in your big names, draw a crowd, get them to go vote, or convince people to go knock on doors and get other people to vote. It's something that's worked in Virginia and other places for them before. Republican Glenn Youngkin has been doing this all solo. He told me last week, I'm the only one that's going to win this race. I'm not bringing out-of-state Republicans in to help, whether that's Donald Trump or somebody else. We're going to win this on our own. If he does, that's a signal to Republicans all over the country. You can do it, and you can do it without at least appearing publicly with the former president if he's unpopular in your neck of the woods. If he is popular, then undoubtedly he may be brought in at some point. But in Virginia, he remains the most unpopular political figure. Democrats know that, and they'll continue to insert noun, verb, and Donald Trump in just about every argument they make for why Terry McAuliffe should become the next governor.
And it's an intriguing question, Ed, because I know that the president and McAuliffe has to sort of paint Youngkin in a Trumpian light. But the question is, objectively speaking, is Youngkin Donald Trump or is he Mitt Romney?
Oh, well, he's a bit of both, in that he won the primary in part by tipping his hat to the former president and saying that he had supported him and appreciates the support that the former president has given him. And yet he is kind of a Romney-like Republican figure, a business executive, a family man, a devoted Christian who sort of looks like that guy that lives down the street or might have been your boss once. And right now, all of that, plus the fact that he's managed to focus on an issue of concern, a big concern in Virginia apparently, education, and sort of make every single day and stop he makes about that, it's working. And so, you know, here's an authentic political character out there talking in the affirmative about something he would do. Well, gosh, that's kind of politics 101, but it may be working for Youngkin. And even if he doesn't win, the fact that he was able to give the Democrats such a ride in a state that they have been winning statewide elections in now most of this century should be a signal to them, as McAuliffe has said to Democrats on this side of the Potomac River and to the president, get your act together, do your job, and show people, remind them why we elected you and how government can work for people. You know, it shows how much work they have ahead of them going into next year's elections.
So before we let you go, we mentioned that the president heads to Europe tomorrow. He's got 2 summits to attend, the G20 Summit and also a UN Climate Summit, COP26. What's on the agenda for this trip?
Climate change, codifying at a global level that corporate minimum tax that we talked about, and then all things pandemic, the ongoing sort of medical response to this, public health response, the U.S. commitment to giving vaccines to the world, but also the economic fallout, things like supply chain concerns, making sure that countries signal if they've got enough of something or if they need more, and making sure that this increasingly interdependent global economy continues to function as we all come out of this pandemic and demand picks up for certain things again and supply may lag at first because of production slowdowns. And then the climate summit in in Scotland, not Switzerland, is another key component of what this president is trying to do, not only domestically but on the global stage, and that is focus on this growing concern and danger, urgent and present, of climate change, something that he feels isn't discussed enough, but something that this legislation that Democrats are working on is likely to address here in the United States, with at least $500 billion of spending planned to fight it, the biggest commitment ever by this federal government, if it happens. By being able to go to Scotland and say, look what we're about to do, this White House believes could help compel other countries around the world to take similarly aggressive steps. We'll see.
We will see. Ed O'Keefe at the White House, thank you so much, sir.
Take care.